The question which annoys me is, why is it so fucking hard to release a mobile game this year? And everybody here is like, sweating and their problems. You have to shovel around. It's like very different from 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know what you're complaining about, but let's look at it a little bit deeper and see what you can do about it, how you should change your way attacking the mobile market, which helps you circumventing the problems. I will skip all this, right? I'm nearly 40 years in the industry. I've done everything you can imagine, so just Google me and you know all this crap. Yes, I released my own mobile game in October worldwide called Homeworld Mobile. Our KPIs are so awesome. Our publisher is really slow, meaning that scaling is something we're waiting for. And of course, we needed to scale exactly when the user acquisition market went into shit. It's great, isn't it? And everybody who's laughing is like, yeah, I've been there. Oh, shit, it's so bad. Yeah, we will see. So why is 2023 mobile hell? The first thing, which is a natural phenomenon, and we expected this to happen, we saw it coming, is that the app store is overcrowded. It's not overcrowded by the number of apps. It's overcrowded in nearly any genre by the number of quality apps. There's so many fucking good games in the app store, so, excuse my language, I don't care, that you have a really hard time compete. And the budgets are rising, right? There are these Chinese throwing 3,000 developers on a game in some genre and releasing it within 3 months. And you're looking at it and said, oh, we can't do that. We are a team of 20 people. How can we compete? But you have to ask yourself, how can you compete against these giants of mobile game development, right? And reminder, 60% of the overall revenue worldwide is being done on mobile, meaning that all the big players are going mobile first. Right? And you all need to compete. The question is, how do we want to do that? The second thing, and I already mentioned that, is that user acquisition is in deep shit. And the reason is that in former times, I placed an ad on Facebook, I could measure the click, the user, the download into my app, and knew that this user who quit on day 14 was actually the one who clicked this ad. So you could measure his performance, how much money he got you, against the cost of your ad, which was a gold mine. It's like day trading. You could go into channels and user acquisition, and you immediately know when the return of advertising spend was there. You could adjust scope. It was basically a license to print money. It went so far that there were companies who released shitty games, but they made millions because their user acquisition was so good. That was the wrong picture. Let's call the company Machine Zone. Just one example. That's no longer possible. And this is what you compete against. Who knows what this game is? Yeah, you know you're cheating all the time. Every year I see you're cheating. Anyone else? This is a must play for all. Which one? Yeah, Honkai Star Rail. So you have to play this because this is what you're competing against when you do RPG. First week, 20 million downloads, 50 million revenue. First week. Now, we all want that, right? But can we compete against these guys? I'm not sure. Let's go a little bit into the genres I talked about. Overcrowded genres, overcrowded app store. And this is just a selection. This is not complete. This is just some selections because I want to use them as examples. So any genre has saturation. Any genre popular on the App Store, someone says, we can do that better, and releases another game of it. And most often, they're not successful because the old-timers in the genre are still alive and kicking. So there was a time when Candy Crush was #1 in Match 3. I'm just taking this as an example because everybody knows it. And no one could beat it. There were hundreds of Match 3 being released. And then someone came and did, hey, let's just add a story to it. And bam, they beat Candy Crush. So what did they do in order to beat them? They didn't plan to beat them, by the way. But now we can analyze why did these people beat the #1. And that's a principle you can apply to your development if you're daring, because it's risky. This is the monthly revenue top 100 RPG chart. Okay, top 100. You remember when we measured the top 10 and the number 10 was like doing okay-ish and then was the rest? Now we are at top 100. So the number 100 RPG is doing 2 million a month. That's crazy, isn't it? So when you do an RPG, you have to compete against 100 competitors already being ahead of you. So if you want to do an RPG, hands up. Poor souls. I know there are RPG elements in every game, right? But pure RPG, yeah. There's one example I want to talk about because I have some inside information and I was very indirectly involved into that, and that's Raid Shadow Legends. Because they actually wanted to beat Summoner's War. They released a Summoner's War clone. It was identical to Summoner's War. The major change they did, the graphics were targeted at adults. And that gave them the edge. So anyone in the Western world who wanted to have a serious Summoner's War adaptation downloaded Raid Shadow Legends, besides the genius marketing, okay? Different stuff. This was the only advantage they had. And now they're doing like a couple of million a month, which is okay. So they changed the setting. This is the strategy top 100. That's only 500K here. I want to have your eyes on one title here, Whiteout Survival. Who played that? It was mentioned today at 10 o'clock as well. The interesting part of this game is it cheats on the user. The first couple of hours of this game is completely different than the game you're ending up with. You should play that. Maybe it's a kind of small little idle villager game where you care about your grandfather, surviving the frozen tundras, and cut down that tree, make a little bit fire, this is it. And then sometimes the game opens and it's a classic 4X strategy where you're getting beaten to death by 100 opponents. But at that point, it's already too late. You already invested, meaning that you don't go away. The genius thing, what they did is they released that game twice. And that's something not many people know. The one is called Whiteout Survival, which has this kind of more, let's say, Supercell type graphics. And the other one, which is the identical game, they released with indie graphics. Why the hell did they do that? Well, it's an A/B test of graphic settings. That's interesting. I haven't seen anyone doing that at launch. Nevertheless, they do 10 million a month with that little game. It's kind of curious. You should take a look at that. The other genre, NFT games. Has anyone seen a working NFT game? Half a finger? Okay, NFT games don't work yet. Investors are shying away from NFT. It's very hard. 1-2 years ago, they were all getting crazy and gave you 100 million to do that stuff. Now they're like, we don't know, we want to see numbers first. So NFTs are not working yet, simply because we haven't found the formula yet to make it work. But on the other hand, the most common problems this genre has is not solved. First, the user doesn't like it. Second, if you communicate it doesn't like it. If you don't communicate it, you don't make money with it. So what the hell is going on? So at the moment, most developers in the NFT game space are doing a classic free-to-play game. That's the reason why they hire me. And then they put NFT on top. That's what they're trying to do now. So we'll see if that works. The strategy games is the first genre which was completely overcrowded. A fierce competition. I mean, if you can compete against Lilith games with their Rise of War, or how is it called? Rise of Kingdoms, I'm sorry. When you do a strategy game, a classic 4X, the minimum requirements you have to put into your game of features and all that is so high that you can't just compete with a 20 to 50 people team. So just to meet the expectations of your user, there is like millions of dollars you have to put into your budget, and you can't. But your only chance here is that you can go into a niche. You can go into a niche, for example, survival strategy games. That's still there. And there are survival strategy games coming up here and there which are successful. And that brings me to one of the biggest hints I can give you where you should go is into the niche. But you have to be careful about that. We're covering that topic. I defined it as a new genre. It's not, but it's so popular that it should be. I call it the Genshins. So when Genshin Impact came, it took everyone by surprise. First, the quality of the production, the graphics, it was great, super. Second, that the monetization was so unaggressive, so passive that everybody thought, oh, they might have 1 million downloads, but nah, they won't make money. Well, bam, here we go, hundreds of millions of downloads, and they're doing 2.8 billion a year or something like that. Crazy shit. And then they released the successor, which we just talked about, and they're doing 50 million, first month. And then comes Tencent and says, we won't allow that to happen. We want to own RPGs, so let's do our own, called Tower Fantasy, and release that. And they're doing 2 million a month. That's a fail for Tencent. So not even Tencent can compete with these. And you want to do an RPG? Okay. I know. I love RPGs. Please don't stop. So there's the other version of RPGs I call card-based RPGs. It's not playing cards. I basically mean when you have to summon heroes, like Summoner's War. Okay, that's what I call card-based gacha games. And that has been oversaturated since Summoner's War release. It took 2 years until people realized what Summoner's War did to the genre. And then they started to wake up and clone it. Not many were successful. And since 7 years, the innovation cycle in this area has reached diminishing returns. So, they added features, added cool stuff and so on. And now it's really, really hard to add something to that genre in order to stand out. But in order to get downloads, to get attention from users, to get their money, you have to stand out. You can't just do a Summoner's War in comic graphics. That's not enough anymore. The battle royales or PUBGs, another niche. No, another niche is wrong. Another genre with a lot of niches. Battle royales, PUBGs, and so on. And the problem here in this genre is that the stuff we call in German Platzhirsch, which is like the first who came and defined the genre and were doing millions of dollars are still there doing millions of dollars, and they don't move away from number 1, 2, and 3. To beat them is really hard. So this is if someone, is anyone trying to do such a thing here in this room? Okay, that's a good move. I wouldn't recommend it. You can't. So someone asked me, hey, who can disrupt PUBG? Who can beat that? I mean, this is a monster. Look up the money they do. And I said, yeah, the creator of PUBG actually is the only one who can, because this is the second time he did it. And he will do it the third time. He might be the only one who understands what he's doing. I don't know, but yeah. Let's do an example what happened with this game. Everybody knows it, right? There was this Survivor.io coming, and everybody said, where did that came from? Well, it was a clone. It was a clone from Vampire Survivor. So what did they do different? Well, they maybe made it more compatible with the masses, and they had a better marketing. The problem with this is that it was too easy to clone. So they came out, made a lot of money, and instantly there were like 100 variants of it in the App Store. So how can they actually stand out against the one who already has like 100 million downloads? And if you know what happened to Arterio, you remember it? Artero, I'm sorry. The same thing. When that happened, suddenly hundreds of clones came out and no one survived. But Artero is that the next step of Artero was to make the game deeper with better progression systems and long-term systems. That was what made the next generation of Artero good. And the same thing will happen here. I mean, this thing is so easy to clone that it's actually a game mode in AFK Arena. AFK Arena, the Idle RPG, they have a small little mode where you can basically play this with AFK Arena characters. So if you go there, you should think about what is the next step people want to enjoy. They play this, they're having fun, but they want to have a little bit more depth to it. And that's what you have to deliver in order to catch these users. So let's see what 2023 brings to us a little bit so that you get a clearer picture. This is the worst kept secret of our industry. And this is down below here, I don't know if you see it. Core games are responsible for 60% of the mobile revenue. Okay, let's sink that in. It's not Candy Crush, it's not Artero, it's not Survivor.io. No, it's core games doing that, which includes mid-core games, okay? Meaning that where is the money? It's the money in deep, complex, easy to accessible games. That's where the secret is. So if you do any game and you do a shallow version of it, like you can play a little, do this. That's not where the money is. You might get reach, but you don't get all the money. So as someone said this morning in a really good talk you should have visited at 10 o'clock is, if the value of if the cost of the user is rising, and we see that, you should increase the value of each player you have. And How you do that? With a deep economy where the user can spend even more money if he wants to. So who has an ARPDA of over $1 here in his game? Average revenue per daily active user, larger than $1. Thank you, 2, yeah. That's where the magic is, right? So how do you do that? It's no secret, because that secret is over 20 years old, how you do that. Because the early free-to-play games all did this. And then came the casuals and ruined the whole thing. So this is official graph, Sensor Tower. This is the Midcore segment, 60%, divided between action, shooter, strategy, and RPG. This is the most important graph you can memorize today. And that's from 2022, first half year. I haven't found out a more recent one, but it hasn't changed. I actually suspect this is even more now. So you can find what you should do is that it's not all about one number. That was a rule I once communicated here on this conference. So if you say, hey, Midcore does 60%, let's do Midcore. The question is how occupied these segments are. Like how many strategy games are there you can compete with? How many RPGs are there you can compete with? Let's forget these two because this is really tough shit you want to enter. So let's go shooter. So how about we think about different core games you can enter here, which are not even there yet. That's where your magic is. Go where no one else goes. It's my recommendation. I said it the first time 4 years ago on the talk here at the conference, and it still is. So, survival. Survival games are really big on PC. Who is playing survival games on PC? A lot of them, yeah. So why the heck aren't you doing a survival game on mobile? Lesson is, if it's big on one platform, it's big also on mobile, because mobile encompasses all genres. There's no reason why you shouldn't do a survival game. And if your publishing or marketing says, nah, survival is too hardcore, people don't want to die, blah, 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 fuck them. Here's the thing. I'm so long in this industry, I know what was for years the #1 game on Steam, which was a hardcore survival game, and all publishers ignored it. EA, that will never work, it's niche. Take-Two, Activision, everybody ignored that #1 title. It's called DayZ. They didn't get it. For years, it was 4 or 5 years on #1 until the first competition arrived. Does anyone know a survival game from Activision, EA, or Take-Two? See, there are none. They don't get it, but you do. So take that. Look at all the survival games coming out from small little teams, 7, 8 people, and suddenly they have 1 million sales on Steam. But where are the survival games on mobile? There are some, but take a look. It's one of the sub-genres you can do. If you do an RPG, for example, you love RPGs, you say, nah, we do RPGs, whatever Teut says, think about a survival RPG. Yeah, there you go. The cool thing about survival is you can lose everything. Means that, hey, I just paid $10 for that sword, right? Well, you just died, I'm sorry. Gone. You're laughing that this doesn't work, where it does. Here, this one Polish developer who did the Last Day on Earth with all the subgenres. It was one of the first ones who did this. I bought the pack with the M4 machine gun and helmet and American uniform, and bam, I died a minute later and it was gone. And I'm like, what the fuck, he can't do that? Oh, yes, he can. And it's doing really good money. So, the main problem, what I wanted to tell you, is visibility, right? We all know that. Marketing tries to get visibility up, user acquisition, everyone, but how can you be visible to users? And the first rule of Teut is be different. If I see your App Store page, and I immediately connect you, oh, this is like Summoner's War, you're already lost. You have to get my interest, your user's interest, by the view on the App Store page, and immediately see, oh, this is cool. You remember the time when the advertising of a game was much better a game than the game in itself? Remember that? You looked at an ad and said, oh, this is so cool, I want to play it. You downloaded it. What the fuck is this? This doesn't resemble actually what the ad is. We all have seen this, right? This is where the magic is. What they're now doing is they're putting the ad on, people are clicking, and that's actually the game you play until the game transitions into the real game they want to sell. Like the survival winter game I showed you. They're exactly doing this. So, I'm sorry. Classic user acquisition, the golden time, is dead. it's a hard time. The data protection rules of Apple and Google destroyed the attribution of profitability. So your user acquisition people, bear in mind, have a really hard time. The main problem here, oh, thank you so much. You're such a sweetie. It's not only that user acquisition is hard to calculate now if it's profitable or not. Yes, there's a solution, there are third party, there are user acquisition agencies storming to you, oh, we found the solution and stuff. Be careful. Is that the games which have a really high monetization, really high lifetime value, they are in the most profitable channels and they own it. So there are channels on Facebook, wherever you do advertising, where the most profitable users are coming from. And they're sitting there and they're saying, I pay $7 per user, I don't care. $10? Yeah, sure, I do. And you're like, wait, what? We can't afford that. So you can't use the profitable channel. So you have to look somewhere else, where it's like the secondary trash traffic, right? And you have to live from that because they own that channel. How can they afford that? Well, because they might have exploitative monetization mechanics, or they are a core game with a really high ARPDAU. So why aren't you one of these, that you can actually afford these users? And they're still profitable, right? So user acquisition is actually stuck in old-fashioned ways. This is my tip to you, anyone who is doing user acquisition by himself, raise your hand if you're doing user acquisition by yourself inside your company. That's a good one, okay. First, get kids who teach you how modern social media works. First tip. If you're not on TikTok, I will personally slap you. You should be on TikTok. It's the biggest social media in the world, and you should be there. And TikTok was very, very different from Facebook and Instagram, so learn it, look it, be addicted, and say, ooh, what did I just learn? I actually didn't know I wanted to learn it. That's exactly what TikTok is. So you have to do your ads and what you're doing there exactly like that to target users. Teach them something, entertain them, right? This is magic, and you should use it. The old classic featuring. You remember when 1/3 of your traffic came when Apple said, oh, we feature you, and you bam, 1 million users, and your servers crash, and you're, this is so cool. Featuring is dead. Apple saw that, nah, this is kind of unfair against everyone. But it's only that sort of. You have to have a specialist who knows the rules of Apple and Google, inside out, how their pages work, how the features work there, what you can do. Again, this morning, 10 o'clock, that talk, I should recommend that. He said that they're doing ads about fishing, which leads to an App Store page where their game is featuring fishing, although it's an RPG. They do the same with cooking. So they have various App Store pages for the same game where they just feature a different hobby, fishing, cooking, whatever. And that works like a charm. Did you know that you could have more than one App Store page for your game? You should, because you have to fine-tune your game for that. And learn about what the keywords mean, what is being indexed. You should prevent double keyword entries, lots of things. You need an ASO specialist in your company who actually does all of that. The rating is important. If you're below a certain rating threshold, Google will put you into a low organic traffic level. Did you know that? So you have to beat that, I don't know, 4.54, or what, I don't forget the number. You have to be higher than that so that Google puts you into the high traffic bin. And the same is with Apple. So, you have to learn that stuff. How can you get good ratings? Yes, make a good game, but there are other tricks to do. Learn how that works. How do you get more 5-star ratings than usual? Because the user is too lazy to write reviews. So, one click 5-star, and if you say 4-star, hey, submit a review. And if you said, nah, cancel, his 4-star rating isn't submitted, but the 5-star is. Nah, Google doesn't like it, Apple doesn't like it, but they accept it. Word of mouth. Any ad, in terms of quality, is shit against a friend of you recommending a game to you. This is like the highest quality of user you can get. So make it easy for them. Like, don't use icons which are too complicated. I'm always saying that the name of your app and the icon you should memorize after your friend told you about the game and showed you his phone for 3 seconds while you were drunk with him at a bar, and you should remember it next morning. You're laughing, but that's exactly what's the case. How was the name of that game? And then you enter the name, and the name doesn't appear in the search term. But that's your fault then. You should optimize that, right? And the other word of mouth is that you should be your community management. There's no forum. You know, in the old times when we had PC free-to-play games, we had forums and all of that. V-Bulletin, anyone who still ran a V-Bulletin back in the time? You don't even know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm too old. So today's games for community management and chatting with their users, they all use Discord. I'm currently playing a game who even running the server in chat rooms in Discord. So integrate that, have a single click, he goes into Discord and can chat with people, you know. Very easy. Learn the differences of all the social media. What is Instagram for? What is Facebook for? What is TikTok for? What is whatever social media platform you need, you know. And if you don't know, ask people who love it. Everybody has someone in your company who has an Instagram profile where thousands of people look at it every day. Ask these. How do you do that? How can you create for your game something where so many people are looking at? Same with TikTok. So my recommendations for your product strategy, how to tackle 2023 and beyond, right, is the product positioning is defined by your genre. You have a genre, make your homework. Look in the genre, where are they most active? How much money they do per month, how much downloads they do per month in terms of a life cycle. And this website, where I get this data from, is completely free. It's called appmagic.rocks. It's a godsend, really. Just use it, and it's completely awesome. You know, you see how many downloads they have, you see the revenue per download, and you see every single country where they're strong at. And you can even say, hey, from these games in the market segment, show me all the competitors. And they do. So, you know, very simple to use. Do your homework. You should know your data of your competition, where they are strong, how much use they have, because that defines your ceiling in terms of ARPDAU, of how much money do we do per user. Your business case is defined by that. That's their potential. And that game is already online since, I don't know, 4 years or something. And if you want to enter that, just as an example, these are the KPIs you have to expect. And if this is too low and you're saying, oh, we need 2 years to be profitable, well, then call it off. Don't do it. You're running a business after all. If you want more detailed KPIs, it's a good thing to see who the owners are, and if they're publicly listed, they do shareholder reports. Every 3 months and there's a yearly shareholder report. Download these, get it translated by DeepL if it's a foreign language, and you see, usually, mostly you find very good data. And this data is not lied about, because if they do that, they go into prison. So they have to sell the truth to their shareholders, meaning that this is true data you're getting, on top of whatever you find here. So what did you learn if you analyze your genre, right? You learned what are your key countries. So if your key country is the US or Italy or whatever you come up with, you have to learn how their gamers are slightly different than yours. Poland is a hardcore gamer country. You know games far better than any US American. They play differently, so learn why that is and adapt your game to that audience if that's your key territory. The demographics, female, male. You know, there's League of Legends who has a kind of 30% female share. Did you know that the competitor from Tencent actually has a 50% male-female share? And you may ask, how did they do that? That's awesome, because you just widened your reach by 30%, at least. The charts in your segment you should follow. Who's rising, who's trending, what mechanics do they have, how do they do certain things, the best practice, minimum requirements, lots of that. And their graphics are preferences. Don't fall into the trap that only because the top 3 in the charts actually have a similar graphic setting that you say, oh, this is the one they expect. No. If you deliver what they expect, you're doing the same thing they do, meaning that you already lost because they have 3 years market experience on top. You're just launching. So be bold and be different. Be the only one in the top 10 who looks completely different. And they're like, oh, they get interested. Because here's the secret. If you're hooked into a game and you play that every single game, you get bored by it at some point. But they don't want to leave because they invested so much time, progression, money into it, right? Unless they say, oh, that looks cool, bam, you have it. It's not only about looks. So this morning, again, 10 o'clock, that talk, they had a graphic style which was a little bit old, and they had, in the beginning, they had 45% day one, awesome, and then it dropped down to 20%, and they're like, ah. So they They redid the whole graphics, and bam, they're back at 42%. Should be a lesson to everyone. Your graphics are not in the hands of your lead art designer. Your graphics should be in the hands of the A/B tester. He is the one who defines which graphic style you're following. And you should have a cultural background as well. So what do you learn? You learn your features, your minimum requirement, your user favorites, what the audience wants and enjoys. That's a small little reminder. Free-to-play games by default are online games, even asynchronous, meaning that your designers have to learn what online game design means and what the difference is between game design and online game design. If not, give them a lesson. If you want to go into a genre which is already pretty busy, learn how you can break through that genre. Look at all of them and see, this is all the patterns, they're all following the same stuff. Ask the people who play that, what would you expect, what would you make switch the game? Like the Candy Crush users were bored, but they're already level 2,500, so, but then came a game which has the same principle, but they added a cool story to it, and they're like, oh, that's neat. Look at that battler cleaning the room and everything. That's all they needed. It's a very different audience than if you would have a core game and you want to break through that innovation problem they have. So that's something from another industry, but still, what works well, what doesn't work, successful practices, relevant innovations, new strategies and method, and unserved market niches. And here's a big secret where I get my inspirations from. I get my inspirations from platforms and games which are top hits on their platform, which hasn't made it to mobile yet. There are platforms out there where they have a game selling 20 million, and then you look into the mobile market and want to search for something similar, it doesn't exist. Whoops. You should be fast. And that gets me to the last point of my talk, which is how should you structure your game development in your company to actually get ahead of your competition. Okay, so I call it test fast, fail fast. This is normal, or TF cubed. The thing is that in order to test fast, to get feedback from someone if that works or not, you have to put it onto the market really fast. Most developers make the mistake to, it's not done yet, that's not beautiful enough, and then after 1.5 years, it's not ready yet, and then they go out and the community says, no, that sucks. And then you backtrack and change all the stuff they suck to make better, but the cost of change is so high because you already have so much things in place that it might ruin you. Why didn't you ask these guys like 1 year before? You can. Meaning that you have to learn how to design things where you can ship 20% of that feature and still make a really good feedback cycle. Like ask them if that works. And then you put in the next 20%, the next 20% until you're done. Much cheaper. And if you fail fast, you can change cheap. This is like, it's very easy to say for me here, right? But it's very hard to implement, believe me. Because developers are perfectionists, which is good. But on the other hand, you say to your programmer, ship it. You can't. Oh, yes, we can. Okay. And the structured feedback. You need someone in the company who knows how to interpret feedback. Because what people say might not actually tell you what they mean. You have to have someone who interprets this. Someone on Discord called a moderator or community manager who actually interprets and makes a structural report every week or every 2 weeks and gives it back to your designers. And the designer take that feedback, take the data, and take their designs, put it on the table, and then make the right compromise, what they should do. If you don't do that, you're listening too much to one side, meaning that you fail. If you're listening too much to your consumer, they are bored because they only recommend what they already played. If you're listening too much to the designers, you will never finish. If you're looking only at the KPIs, you'll be a money hole where the users say, this is pay to win, I don't play this. So be careful. In order to be fast, don't make the mistake to develop everything you own. Use licensed technology. It makes you so much faster. And what I mean with chat, who has developed their own chat here in their game at some point? Shame on you. Yeah, you don't really. Chat looks so simple, right? Oh, we just text chat, blah blah blah. No. You have to monitor, you have to log, 3 months data protection laws, blackword filter, whiteword filter. Every country is different. You have to implement hot links, clan chat, tons of stuff. Don't simply go, to the exit game guys and license Photon. Bam, all done. Takes 2 weeks. Use AI tools, and I'm not joking. AI is here not to replace you. AI is here to speed up your processes. So your lead artist, he's the one who will run right. If you say, oh, we're using AI now for art. No, he will say, no, we don't. I will quit my job if I... Yeah, normal stuff, been there, done that. But here's the thing. The lead artist does his key art, which looks cool. You A/B tested that. You go to this style direction and say, oh, this is so great. And then you use AI to scale it. You train the AI by the style and art of your lead artist, and then you scale up, and that's awesome fast. And as AI develops exponentially right now, and every single week there's a new AI coming out where I say, what the fuck? Okay, yeah, I'm shaking my head every week, They do audio, they do 2D graphics, 3D models, animations, they do everything right now. They could even replace in Terminator 2 the Terminator with you. 1 click, and he's playing the Terminator. That's AI. You can use it. Use it to your advantage to go faster to the market. The budgets are rising, the development time is rising, and imagine you're developing an RPG today. Okay, I start today. When is it finished? To be ready to soft launch. What do you think? In 2 years? What happens in 2 years with the mobile market? You have no idea. You have no idea what the state of the mobile market is, or the tool market, nothing, meaning that it's a super high risk. So what would happen if you would start today and would say, hey, we could soft launch on Christmas or early next year? Now that's easier, less risk, so do that. Embrace AI, please. Use your team's genre experience. That's always something I've seen. There's a team who mastered the, let's say, idle genre, okay? And suddenly the CEO says, I really want to do a survival shooter like PUBG. And the team goes and tries to develop that. The problem is all the experience is actually in the idle genre. So you should stick to that. That's where the team actually is operating. But in order to give it to them, make variations of that genre. Go into survival idle games or whatever you call it. But if you completely go into the other direction, theoretically, your team might be not the best to actually do that. Of course, they are bored with always the same stuff to do. Hey, not another idle game, but on the other hand, give them something more interesting to do. But if they go into a certain different direction, all the learnings they had with the parts game they did are for nothing if you change genre, right? Don't use IP. That might be contradicting. It doesn't matter. If you use an IP, if you go to Disney and license Marvel, you say, oh, I get millions of users downloading it. Yeah, but you also get double the amount of development time because Marvel is not easy to handle. The friction they cause into it, the cost they, due to the length of development, you need one guy to handle just the licensee to actually get all the permissions and stuff. It's horrible. It's really, really hard to develop for an IP. You get free traffic, but your traffic is also limited. Imagine your game would be lovely for a certain audience, but they hate Marvel. Well, you don't get them. So it's always a double-edged sword. Be careful by using IP. Create your own IP, because then you're getting sold for $1 billion and not for $10. Yeah, you're thank you. Okay, final advice, okay? Your goal must be to stand out without requiring heavy user acquisition. That has to be your goal. I showed you some method to do that, right? Unique setting, unique genre, unique everything, embrace the gaps, make your homework, see where the gaps are, and go in here. Standing out, innovate, high chances of success, but higher risk. But higher risk means there's the money, right? Build a customer base in Discord. Don't use too many of the social media. If you go broad on everything, you might lose focus on a few you know most. If you follow the trend, you will die. If you follow the trend, but you're very different, then you might survive, but that's risky. You have to know everything about that genre if you try to do that. Something a famous person said, not me, but someone else, is make games that target niche and monetize that niche really well, or make games that are strong enough to compete in a mass global market. There is no middle road. The middle road will die. You have the Genshins, and then you have the small little survival game beneath. There's nothing in between. This is something which most of us are not able to do. But this, specifically you Polish people, are the best in Europe, I know. Okay? Go there, please. Thank you.
Teut, it was more than it was not normal session, it was masterclass, I think. I don't know if you feel like me right now. We have a time for questions. I know that colleague here didn't manage to make a picture of the two slides before, so maybe this will be your question. That's not the problem. Okay.
Which slide do you want to make a picture of?
Take out.
Three slides backward. Oh yeah.
Yes, this one. Yes.
This one?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Personal service.
And you have a time for question now. Okay.
Hi.
You turn it on.
Thank you very much for the talk. You mentioned the app Magic Rocks app to get the data, and you said it was free. I just checked it, and it's $240 per month.
Wait a second. You go with the web browser on it, not the app, right? And with the web browser, when you make an account, you get the images I posted. That's the free data they give you, right? Including some other ones. Of course, there are many menus you go in there, and they suddenly said, "Oh, you have to buy premium to actually do that." But there's many sections on that web page which give you tons of data for free. So with the web browser, go in.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you very much for this masterclass.